All right, guys, so I want to break down something that's extremely important, especially when you're going through an intermittent fasting program like the one that I'm offering up to you at the end of the week. Okay? In particular, I'm talking about time under tension training. Very specific kind of training that is truly, truly amazing when it comes down to helping you shed the most of your unwanted body fat, but also helping you feel like you're actually recovering and feeling energized after your workouts. So I want to break down some science, but I also want to give you the facts on why traditional methods and why lots of cardio might be the worst thing you want to be doing when you're doing a fast. So when it comes down to intermittent fasting, the reason that we want to take it easy on the excessive cardio is simply because it definitely will break down muscle. The big thing, when people are fasting, they always think they're going to break down their muscle stores. And like I said in the previous video, that's not the case. But when it does become an issue is when excess cardio is in play. Now, cardio is okay, it just has to be timed properly, and that's exactly why the science-based six-pack program is going to give you the formula. So there was a study done by Biomed Central in 2013 that took a look at 44 subjects that were participating in the 2009 Trans-Europe Foot Race. Now, that sounds like a massive race because it is, but not all the participants were necessarily running the whole thing. Basically what they did is they took a pool of those subjects and they measured how much fat they lost, but they also wanted to look at how much muscle they lost too. And it was pretty interesting. Yes, they all lost fat, but they lost 7% of their muscle in their lower body as well. That's definitely a lot considering it wasn't a long period of time. So if you're doing cardio day in and day out constantly, you could seriously run into that issue. Now again, cardio is okay, but it has to be implemented properly, and that's why I'll give you the exact science and the exact facts behind how to do that in the science-based six-pack program. But let's talk a little bit about the weight training side of things or the body weight training side of things, because it all comes down to this wonderful thing called time under tension, TUT. Now what exactly is time under tension? Well, it's just like the name implies. It's how long the muscle, the sarcoplasm, is actually under tension when you're working out. You see, when you're lifting super heavy weights, you might not be really putting your muscles under a lot of tension. You're just kind of lifting things up and putting them down, and you're really torquing your whole body. You're not actually really taxing the muscle the way that you want to. When it comes down to time under tension, you can really elicit a lot of hypertrophy. You can really get the muscle cells to respond well. Basically, what time under tension is measuring out how long each phase of the contraction is. So you have a concentric contraction, which is when you curl up or when you push when you're doing a bench press or when you're pressing up out of a squat. Then you have the isometric or just the actual hold, which is basically, again, if you're doing a bicep curl, when you're at the top of the movement and you're holding. Then you have the eccentric, which is the decontraction, basically the opposite of the contraction, where you're resisting the weight. So in this case, on a curl, it's when you're coming down. On a squat, it's when you're coming down. Okay, on a shoulder press, it's when you're coming down. On a bench press, it's when you're coming down. It's the opposite. It's when you're opposing the weight and the weight is actually beating you. So again, another example, when you're under a bench press and you're able to force the bar up, that's concentric. Then when you're at the top, that's your isometric. Eccentric is when you're stretching the muscle and you're resisting the bar but letting it overcome you. So that's explaining how that is. Now what we do with time under tension is we add up all the time that it takes to do these types of moves or these different types of contractions. We have 2 seconds on the concentric contraction, we have 1 second on the isometric or the hold, and we have maybe 3, sometimes more on the eccentric, totaling 6 seconds, okay? So we have 6 seconds that we're under tension for a given rep. Then we multiply that by how many reps we're doing. So let's say we're doing 10 reps. If we're going 6 seconds per rep and we do 10 reps, we have 60 seconds under tension. Time under tension. 60 seconds under tension. 60 seconds that the muscle is getting taxed. And if we start looking at it via that pathway, it's a lot easier to understand how we can get the most effect on the muscle, especially when we're fasting. Some of the benefits that you're going to encounter with time under tension training. Isolated, lighter weight, less damage on your joints, easier to handle. Okay, isolated, you want to work your biceps, you can feel it more. You're not schlepping heavy weight around, indirectly hitting them. Quadricep work, lighter weight on your squats, but focusing on how long you're under tension. Okay, less equipment is a big one. Okay, you want to work out at home, you want to work out with your body weight, just a small amount of dumbbells. Very, very important there, okay? Then more time under tension to the specific area. Again, that coincides with the first one where we're really talking about making sure you can isolate a particular area of your body when you need to. Also, less central nervous system damage. When you're lifting super heavy weights, you're damaging your CNS. In fact, the first phase of that shaky feeling that you get after working out with heavy weights, that's central nervous system damage. Time under tension training gets rid of that, so your recovery is a lot faster. I'm gonna break down a real quick example of a time under tension move so that you have a solid idea. Now I'm just gonna go into a simple wall sit. All that means is I'm gonna squat down, and this is basically an isometric contraction. So I'm sitting down in a squat, and my legs are under tension. Time under tension. Now I'm gonna hold this for maybe 60 seconds or so. That's gonna be 60 seconds of time under tension. Okay, I already gave you the example of the bench press and the bicep curl. This is another example. We're measuring the time that the muscle is under tension. I think I've made that clear by now. So that's a good example. Okay, now let's talk about why we're going to be incorporating full body movements with my science-based six-pack program. Here's the thing. Multi-joint movements elicit more of a growth hormone, a testosterone, a luteinizing hormone, and an overall androgenic response within the body. That means more hormone response. That means your body is working better. Combine that with time under tension, and you've got a recipe for success, by and large. Combine that with fasting, game over. You absolutely have the know-how now. Okay, so more HGH, more test, more androgenic hormone response means that you're going to get leaner faster, and the potential for building muscle is significantly higher, even if the heavy weights aren't necessarily present. Now, additionally, when it comes down to full body movement, we have to factor in the lymph system. The lymph system is critical when it comes to burning fat. Here's the thing. Here's our lymph system, the blue guy. Here's our circulatory system, the purple guy. Okay? The circulatory system has a series of veins and arteries and capillaries, all being moved by the heart. The heart beats, it moves everything through these different vessels all throughout the body. Then we have the lymph system. The lymph system leads back to the liver with no heart to pump, nothing to actually move the lymphatic fluid. Why is lymphatic fluid so important? Because it carries the fat. If we don't mobilize the lymph, we don't mobilize the fat, period. And we need to get that lymph back to the liver so that the liver can process the lymph, process the fat, and burn it. Heart moves blood. Nothing moves lymph except for our muscles, which means you have to move your entire body. The whole idea of that is you're stimulating manually the lymph to move. That's the reason why we have full body workouts, and that's the reason why other people don't, because they don't know the science. And other fasting programs out there definitely don't do the hard work that it takes to understand the science, like all of this that science-based six-pack is going to bring to you. So tomorrow, I'm going to give you the details on how to break your fast. The really intricate details and why it's so important, and why that one hormone known as insulin could be making or breaking your success. So make sure you stay close by so you see that video so that you can get the most out of how you break your fast and truly understand my methodology. I'll see you tomorrow.